What's good, everybody? It's early in the morning. You'll probably get it an hour or two later, whenever it decides to upload. Because I'm out. Had one of them nights where I woke up with the remote in one hand, a phone in the other. Y'all know I get hung up on the words. I get hung up on a lot of words. And the one thing that I've really found myself trying not to say is a lot of these words that we've been conditioned to say. As I always talk about, you know, I'm a black man and I watch a lot of shit. Well, I read a lot of shit and I've seen a lot of shit. And the crazy thing about a lot of our language as black people, to where when we get to having discussions about things that we've gone through, we've got to use a lot of these words. And I think we need to get rid of some of these words. And I'm a phrase it, and it's probably not going to catch on the way some would hope it would catch on, but I think we need to remix the prefix, because a lot of the words that we use, they're prefixed with words, and that allows people to excuse themselves just by putting that in front of the word, but they don't actually atone, truly apologize, and there's never any redress. And without any of those, we're never going to have closure in this country. I say company, that's probably more appropriate. But some of the words that we need to remix the prefix on are anti, and D, and dis, and X, and miss, and non, and over, and pre, and re, and sub. When you see these words, when it's talking about black people, you know, anti-racism, desegregation, you know, intersectionality, defund, undo, unemployment, you know, substandard, subsidize. When you see these words, there's a problem. Hell, when I look at pre, I don't even look at pre like a lot of people look at pre. I look at pre like pre-employment screening. Isn't that what a job interview is? Isn't that what you sitting down, looking at the employer, looking at the manager, whoever's going to hire you? Isn't that a pre-employment screening? No, they go one step further and figure out different ways to disqualify you from a job. You know, back in the day, you had to have so many IQ points to be able to vote. Well, today you've got to have so many IQ points to go through a pre-employment screening, because just because you pass the pre-employment screening doesn't mean that you're going to get hired. And I always ask, if it's not important, if race is not a deciding factor, why do y'all put it at the end of their application? Or you don't have to fill this out. Well, the person that doesn't fill that out is generally the black person, because they don't want to get disqualified. If they're smart, they don't fill that out. That's why I've gotten so many job interviews with the name Shannon McFall, because they're usually looking for a white girl that's got red hair with freckles. But then they see my credentials and be like, oh, black man can't have that shit. And then they look at my histories and like, oh, black man didn't do that shit. And then I show up and they'll be like, oh shit, here's a black man. Sometimes I've gotten a gig, sometimes I haven't. But we've got to get rid of these words, because these words allow racist white people to function with impunity. And if we don't get rid of these words, we're going to continue to say anti and D and miss and un and trans and super. See, those words excuse them. And then they alienate us. You don't see these words for anybody else unless you're talking about black people. Now, I know some people going to want to be like, well, what about anti-discrimination, anti-this and anti-that? Okay. Before black people were discriminated on in this country, who else was there to be discriminated on? Before anti-racism, desegregation, any of that shit had to go on in this country, who was the person being marginalized? A black person, not a Latino, not an Asian, not a Native American, not an Indian. Difference. See, y'all like to talk about some of the shit, but y'all don't like to talk about all the shit. And these are things that hold us back. Anytime you gotta say anti-racism, anti-discrimination, desegregation, miseducation, and you are pointing it towards black people, or let's say you just pointing it towards marginalized people. Who were the first people that were marginalized in this country? And we've grown so comfortable to allow people to be comfortable to say these things. And that's why we can just let Black Lives Matter roll off our tongue so easily. And y'all see what Black Lives Matter got you. It got you Blue Lives Matter. It got you All Lives Matter. Before y'all said Black Lives Matter, there was no Blue Lives Matter. There was no All Lives Matter. So what started that? Black, that's the prefix of Black Lives Matter. B is the prefix to BLM. And they just changed it on you. All Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter. Hell, we even see White Lives Matter now. Well, we know that. I know a lot of y'all motherfuckers turn your clocks back. I didn't turn a one back. Some of these motherfuckers digitized, so they just gonna turn back on their own. But I didn't touch a clock. 2020 can't get another hour from me. I need 2020 to get the fuck up out of here. 2020's not been a good year. This campaign has not been good. Am I anti-2020? No,